So tutorial 4, start with the diagram of a system, uh, change the motor side to the other side to get rid of the shaft. To do that, so the torque of the motor becomes N2 over N1, the angle becomes N1 over N2, and the inertia becomes N2 over N1 squared. So this is the new diagram. And for inertia 1, which is the motor side, doing the equations, which is just with that K, the spring there, and you end up with inertia of the motor plus the spring, but because the spring's in the middle, it's the spring of the motor side angle minus the angle of the load side, and that simplifies to that. Then for inertia 2, which is of the load, it becomes the load plus the dampener, the spring, plus the spring on this side, which becomes load minus the motor, and that becomes that when you simplify. And then from that equation you can get the angle of the load in relation to the angle of the motor. With the motor equations, doing KCL around there and using these values for the torque of the motor and for the back EMF, you can get that equation, where R is the resistor and KT is the torque constant and KB is the back EMF constant. And from there, the torque of the motor, you sub the value for the load angle. Like we need to get the load angle at the end, but we have to get rid of it now to simplify to just the motor angle. And so that becomes that in terms of the torque of the motor, which then we can sub into the motor equations. So that can sub into there, and then we can get rid of that angle of the motor, bring it to one side, and then sub the angle back into the angle of the load. So it becomes that, which a lot of algebra later, and subbing the values in, you get a lot of algebra. I subbed the values in a little too early, I realized, because I got to this point where I was getting slightly different values, so I had to go back and find the exact values and sub it in with the equation there. I think it's because of the 1 over 200 squared, which wasn't quite the same when I did it beforehand. But yeah, and then you can get the answer from there.